about me right now, because my next message is one that can be a little bit scary to some people. However, it is also the major pearl of wisdom that I have to share today. The fact of the matter is that life is really very short, and the end is absolutely certain for all of us. It really is true that no one of us are getting out of here alive, and we would never forget this fundamental existential truth. Since death is really inevitable for all of us, how then should we live our lives? For me, the answer to these questions has been clear since I was young. We should commit ourselves to following our hearts and doing what we most love and what we most want to do in life. This is how I've tried to lead my own life since I was in the young age. Now that you've graduated from university and are about to launch yourselves in new directions, it is absolutely essential that you ask yourself, what is it that you really care the most about? What are your passions? What are your deepest ambitions? If you could do absolutely anything in the world, what is it that you would do? Your heart knows the answer to these questions. It is whispering to you right now, at this precise moment, even as I speak these words to you, so listen to it and follow it. It will always be your best guide in life. The recent experience in my life has proven that there are two important aspects to following your heart. First, we need to develop our self-awareness skills so that we can know when we are truly following our hearts and when we've lost our way. It is actually easier than it sounds, because when we are truly following our hearts, we are tapped into our deepest passion in life. We are doing what we most love, and we found our lives full of increased energy, greater creativity, purpose, joy, and happiness. We simply feel more alive, and we are moving within the flow of life. How do you know when you stopped following your heart? When the opposite occurs: decreased energy, lack of creativity, no real sense of purpose, scared of living, and you aren't particularly happy. You have stepped out of the flow of life and are just drifting along. When this happens, the solution is simple: choose again. Reconnect again with your hearts. As long as you're alive, it is never too late. You are free in each moment to choose the path of your heart, and it never stops whispering to you, urging to follow it. The second key to successfully following your heart is that you will need to learn how to deal with fear. It is fear which prevents most people from reaching the fullest potential in life. Fear of failure, fear of rejections from people we care about, fear that we simply aren't good enough, and sometimes even fear of our own potential greatness. Unfortunately, no one else can overcome fear for us. Fear is something that you must learn to master on your own. Of course, courage is the major strategy for learning to master fear for most people, and we should certainly develop courage to the greatest extent we're able to. However, for me, the insight that has personally helped me the most when dealing with fear has been to understand that fear is primarily a creation of the mind. It creates in my mind, it doesn't really exist outside the mind. It can dissolve in there as well. So can you, and you will need to learn how to do this if you really want to be free in life and stay connected to your heart. My third message to you today is to emphasize the absolute importance of love as the cardinal virtue to nurture and cultivate in your lives. I don't believe there's anything more important in life than love. I'm not talking about romantic love, also important here, or eros, also very important, which is a very wonderful state of intoxication, but which also tends to fade over time. Rather, I'm talking about love as care and compassion, which actively flows out of our hearts towards other people and sentient beings through empathy and appreciations. This type of love need not fade over time, but is capable of continued growth all our lives, if we will consciously nurture it. When we are truly following our hearts, we are very likely tapped into the flow of love as well, But love is also so virtue that we can consciously develop in our lives to higher and higher levels. Such efforts are well worth making for nothing, enriches us, teaches us, or makes life more rewarding than developing our capacity for love. In cultivating love in my own life, I found practicing 3 other related virtues to be essential. First is gratitude. Being alive is absolutely extraordinary, and there are endless things to be thankful and grateful for. I try to take a few minutes early in the morning to be very quiet and to appreciate the people I love and to express gratitude in my heart for the many wonderful things that fill my life with joy. Second is forgiveness. Nothing stops the flow of love in your lives quicker than the various judgments we make towards others and the grievances that we allow to fester in our minds against other people. What we don't fully understand is how much we harm ourselves with our judgments and grievances, because if we did understand, we would stop indulging ourselves with them. Instead, we would see them for the poisons that they truly are. Fortunately, there is one virtue that we can practice that will eliminate them from our minds: forgiveness. Practicing forgiveness isn't always easy, however. Our desire to be right is very strong, and this usually requires us to judge others as wrong, and therefore not really forgivable. We also frequently make the mistake of believing that if we forgive others, we are also condemning their harmful behavior. However, forgiveness simply means to relinquish our resentment and anger towards others. It doesn't mean relinquish our values and ethics. When we forgive others, we free ourselves from the past and allow our hearts to be fully in the present moment, which is where love exists. Third is generosity. It would be difficult to exaggerate the value of practicing generosity. The virtue of generosity does not merely apply to giving money, but primarily to the gift of ourselves, our time, and our service to others. True generosity should not be thought of as some kind of self-sacrifice, where what we give to others comes at our own expense. Their gain is our loss. Rather, it is an extension of love from our own hearts, which takes genuine delight in the flourishing of other people. In my life experience, generosity is a virtue that is best cultivated at first with small steps, acts of giving and kindness that may stretch us a bit, but which do not feel like any kind of sacrifice. As we practice generosity over time, we will gradually discover that we want to take larger steps and extend our generosity further because our sense of who we are and what we care about has expanded as well. My fourth message to the class of 2009 today is that life has many, many difficulties and challenges. It isn't easy. We all will face many disappointments, frustrations, losses and injuries, as well as inevitable illness, aging, and eventually death. I believe the best way to deal with most of the difficulties and challenges that come our way are to see them as opportunities to help us grow. Lessons that are presented to us to help us to go further than we have gone before. I have not found it to be useful to ever see myself as a victim of either circumstances or of other people. In the last years, I realized that self-pity is a remarkably self-destructive emotion, which you should consciously work to eliminate from your emotional life because it disempowers you and moves you away from being able to follow your heart. It was a pretty difficult time for me. Many times I was tempted to lash out in anger at the injustice of the situation, and self-pity was frequently a temptation that I had to struggle with. I need sometimes a tremendous amount of personal growth work to try to appreciate and to understand